Good morning. The lights are so bright, it's difficult to see you. But it's a pleasure to present in this conference. My purpose today is to form a uniform understanding of the sector, of the challenges in the sector, of the goals which are common to us, and of the common activities and measures which would enable the building sector to develop successfully so that we could all be satisfied with it. Now, I would like to begin by stating that in Latvia we should be proud and happy with our building sector. For several centuries we've had outstanding architecture and building industry which has been implemented by people who lived here and who live here. They have created it, and we have a true pleasure and pride not only in the historical buildings but also in the buildings which have been created in the recent years. Some of them have been built from scratch and some have been reconstructed, and they improve our experience of daily life. And we are all happy to live and work and raise our children in this beautiful environment. It is also an element of our mentality, the fact that we consider important to have an environment which is beautiful and taken care of, and it also is an area where the Latvian industries can contribute. But certainly we must admit that there are challenges in this sector, and in order to overcome them, there is a policy of building on national level, and we have a common understanding of how we can overcome the challenges. Only if we as a state, as the society and as a sector work together, then we have unlimited potential of what we can reach. As to the challenges, to a large extent, these challenges are part of our daily life, as a building industry is no different from other regular human activities. None of us probably would like to use the public transport or a taxi, the driver of which is either exhausted from the long years of work or has just started driving. And in sports, either we wouldn't be happy about a team which has won thanks to using doping drugs or thanks to the negligence of a referee. And the building sector faces similar challenges, and we must address them, and it is important that we are aware of them. One of the things that I would like to mention which hinders the development of the sector, and here everyone suffers from this problem, namely that this has been a sector which has experienced very uneven development, going up and down year by year, and this has meant that the quality has been extremely difficult to maintain. The building companies have difficulties in planning their capacity, in employing the professionals whom they have hired, and not to fire them due to lack of demand. And then with the recurrent boom, the industry is forced to hire new people, professionals who are not, or maybe not even professionals, people who are not qualified for the work. The next challenge concerns the productivity of the construction sector. If we wish everyone to benefit from the building services, both the sector and the clients. And the largest clients who commission building works are the state and the municipalities. Then the productivity still has room for improvement. We are not the worst among other EU member states, but we have a great potential for growth here, and we must be aware of it. In long term, the competition will delete those who are not competitive, and the competition and the increase of quality helps our country to become more competitive, and we, as a country, will gain from a stronger building sector. The next challenge is related to a myth about the building sector, that it is not very good because there is a large share of the shadow economy present there. At the same time, I would like to emphasize that our building contractors are the same kind of companies, the same market players as in other sectors in the country, and they have to comply with the rules and the situation in the country. If the total share of the shadow economy is 40%, then it is very difficult to comply with the rules. And when you have to compete with those who are not playing a fair game and paying their workers illegally, for instance. And this is an important problem which has to be addressed. And I am really pleased to see the memorandum that an agreement has been made about a number of issues. And yet, besides these issues, there are a number of other background problems, and if they are not addressed, then the other issues cannot be solved. The next challenge concerns the unclear areas of responsibility of the stakeholders involved in the building process, and that hinders the timeline, the period in which the building permits can be obtained. And many investors have admitted that they do not choose Latvia as a place for investments, as these procedures are too long and cumbersome. And unfortunately, in the building law, the building authority is responsible for the quality of the building, but it is very important to say precisely who is responsible for what, and at that moment the decisions will become more clear, and it will help to resolve disputes in building projects when there are disputes about quality, and that would encourage participants in the market to continue with their activities. I would not like to dwell on this slide in detail. The state has implemented short-term measures which were mentioned already. In the first part of the measures, the issues which have been addressed in the memorandum have been covered. One of them is to expand the market of building or of the building sector, and this goal will be reached within 2 years, as the structural funds will be used effectively. There are projects which envisage construction. There is a number of measures envisaged for reducing the shadow economy. I do hope that the state authorities will succeed at implementing these measures successfully. There are many other important measures, such as to increase the amount of exports, as Latvia is a very small market, and if our building companies are not competitive abroad, then the moment may come when they will not be competitive in the local market either. So we must think and look in long-term perspective, and the state considers a number of priorities in order to arrive at a high-quality building sector and process. First of all, the environment of building has to be improved so that the building ideas can be approved and harmonized quickly and effectively. It is very important for small economies like Latvia, which are competing and will be competing with large economies and large markets. It is very important for us to encourage the investors to come here to build their manufacturing sites, their business centers. We see the best examples in Europe, and we must try to catch up with them and keep up with them. We have to become more productive, and that will give us leverage to cope with the fluctuations of demand and supply in the local market, and to preserve the critical capacity to help the entrepreneurship activities stay in balance and to be sustainable. We must try to avoid the enormous fluctuations in the market when the market grows substantially and then falls. In the past years, the market has grown by 40%, then fallen, decreased by 40% again. The building sector must develop hand in hand with the economy, with the economic development in the country. And discussing this issue with specialists of macroeconomics of our ministry, they believe that the optimal growth of the economy would be 4.5% in the subsequent years, and this must also be the growth rate of the building sector in the years to follow. Now, as to the measures that we see in how these goals could be reached. First of all, effective regulations are needed, both on the level of law and Cabinet of Ministers regulations. It is important to have discussions with the sector to make sure that the decisions which are submitted in the building authorities are not revoked, but they are adopted and the deadlines are met. And it is also important for us to have a building information system which would be effective, client-oriented, and much more helpful to our citizens in the process of harmonization. And we also would like the building authorities to be satisfied with this system, and so that they wouldn't complain that they cause an additional administrative burden to them. The State Audit Office of Building is responsible for the further development of the system from the beginning of next year. So we do lay hopes on this system, and that its development will produce positive effects. As to the growth, there is a number of measures which should promote building works in the winter season, not only in summer. It would be important for the state to create long-term building programs which would clearly explain the need for the scope of building. It is also important to plan the large infrastructure building projects on the national level so that people in the industry could prepare for their implementation in a duly fashion. The next item is productivity. What we see here, as well as in the EU, is the need to ensure competitiveness internally and externally, and the financial instruments play a crucial role in ensuring the competitiveness. Introduction of BIM likewise plays a significant role in the productivity. Then in the future, we also must think and work on providing high quality and sustainable education. Quality is the fourth element. It is important to implement the design and build principle, as well as an effective insurance mechanism which would not let the contractors avoid financial liability in case of executing low-quality works. And we also must learn from the good practice of procurements, which could be used in the future procurement. So these are the regulations which the Cabinet of Ministers and the Ministry are working in order to improve the building quality. There are general building regulations of buildings. We have also elaborated regulations which envisage to promote building of wooden buildings, including the regulations for fire protection or safety. Next year, we are also planning to provide for harmonization of documents in the electronic environments, as well as introducing standardized contracts in the building industry. And to return to the beginning of my presentation, Churchill has said, we build our buildings and afterwards they build us. So I wish all of us to make buildings that will keep us happy in life after they are completed. Thank you.